So I just want to do a quick kind of a business thing, not business, I don't know. But entertainment if I your comment is not showing up on one of the more recent videos, and I only noticed it because the comment count didn't match the comments that were showing up. And so I had responded, but if you were like, hey, how come this person never responded to me? YouTube's being weird, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. I didn't mean to make it sound like a business meeting. I'm actually like, I got voted onto being or, or we have to confirm it, but I'm now the vice president of the BTSA. So I'm going to a lot of meetings. And I never in my little goth wildest dreams imagined I would be doing PTSA type things, but I guess somebody's got to do it. So here we are. So I wanted to I have like a really great thing I wanted to talk about, but I don't. If I start off first with it, let me start off with my tier 3 item that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so for some reason, YouTube, you know how YouTube kind of just like randomly shows you stuff and you go, "Oh, okay, I guess we're watching this week." So it started showing me Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman from back in the 90s. It's the one with Dean Cain, he of Ice Infamy, and Terry Hatcher. And I was a kid when that show came out, so I didn't I mean I saw it, but I didn't really remember much about it. But something that really the show made clear to me, um, that I don't think any of the other Supermans ever really did. I was never really like a fan of Superman. Like it's fine, but I didn't really like any of the Supermans. But I actually really like this show. And I like the show because it's mostly about Clark Kent versus the Superman character. I mean, he's obviously the Superman character quite a bit, but you get to see him like with his family, you get to see him with Lois, you get to see him being like an investigative reporter. Um, and so when Lois Lane starts like getting a crush on Superman and she's like goo goo gaga eyes for Superman, and then she's dealing with Clark Kent in person and she's mean. She's not nice to him. She basically treats him like you know, like a hick from the sticks. That he's some Smallville small town reporter who doesn't know anything, and she just has absolutely no respect for him at all. Even though in the show he keeps lore dropping about how he learned stuff in China or he was in the you know like Borneo or something, just these random places with this like very vast knowledge set. And, also it's pretty clear that he has like good values, and is a moral person, but she doesn't respect him, because she doesn't respect him because he's from a small town and thinks she's better than him because she's from Metropolis. However, Superman, who has the same qualities of being a like clearly a good person, she absolutely like over respects him, even though clearly, I mean, it's the same person, whatever. So it's not that she values goodness, it's that she has to respect the person that it's coming from before she'll even respect the goodness. And I've kind of been talking about, over a lot of these past videos about watching how people respond to goodness, whether or not they even recognize the goodness. And then if they do, how are they responding to it? My favorite example are the people who get real big mad about the little libraries. They see the little library, someone trying to do a good thing in their community, and they get like very angry about it and then maybe try to destroy the little library. And so usually when I'm talking about this concept, it's because it's been from a very binary perspective. Either they recognize the goodness or they don't. And as I was in the middle of watching some of the clips from the Superman show, I was like, oh, she recognizes the goodness in both directions, both Clark Kent and Superman. She doesn't respect it when it's coming from Clark Kent because she thinks he's a chump. She doesn't respect him, period. And but she does respect it from Superman because he's Superman. And that's honestly, that's a really interesting idea that I hadn't really thought about before. Because in my experience, it's usually people recognize goodness or they don't. Um, Although there are those people that recognize goodness and then think, oh, I'll take advantage of this person, but they don't usually then turn around to the next person and think that somebody else doing the goodness um, is like an amazing person. It's usually more consistent than that, uh, at least when I've talked about it. So this understanding of framing goodness and construct of respect, like, do I respect this person, and then I'll decide, how I interpret the goodness, whether I give it, whether I interpret it in a positive way or whether I interpret it in a negative way. And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting about the Superman Clark Kent dichotomy, she's so over the moon for Superman at the beginning, but she doesn't know anything about him. Not really. She knows that he's strong, he shows up, and he saves people, and he seems like a nice person, and then he's off. And so she's clearly got, it's an infatuation. It's not real. She keeps like at several points, she's like, "Oh, I love you, Superman," and you kind of see the Clark Kent behind the eyes, being like, "Yeah, okay," you know. And then in this show, apparently, she does get to a point where she goes, Superman's a dream. Clark Kent's like a real person. He's the real deal. Like, I'm doing life with him. He is my partner. He is my best friend. And Lois herself has a little bit of an arc of emotional growth as she goes on through the series. But it did make me think about how often we can see someone who has qualities that we like, but we're seeing them from a distance. And we think, oh my gosh, yes, this person is amazing. And then you sort of you put them on that pedestal instead of, you know, not doing that. And I say that as somebody who's done that before, where it's and of course it's so apparent in the show because it's literally the same guy. The only difference is she feels better than one and she feels underneath the other. Like, girl. Okay. So, okay. The main thing I wanted to talk about tonight is something that I call, it's my hot potato theory. Hot potato, for those of you who are younger, I don't even know if they like this game is kind of like an old OG old school game, but basically the idea was like you'd pass it really now. You'd pass around a hot potato. Hey, honey. And when the timer goes off, whoever's holding the hot potato is the person who is out or who gets, like gets in trouble. Like when we talk about it in our culture, we, talk about has the hot potato. They're now the one dealing with the problem. And I developed my hot potato theory because I realized that whoever touches something last, oh, sweetie, whoever touches something last is usually the person who's blamed for if there's a problem. I first really noticed this in a work environment at like the who touched it last rule. Oh wait, no, actually I was volunteering. I was volunteering at a place and the lady's printer was not working. So we went through this whole thing of like trying to fix her printer because she didn't want to buy a new one. And so finally got the printer working. And yeah, so a week later, the printer stops working again. Now, to me, I was like, oh, well, at least we got a week's more use out of this printer. Because obviously, not a printer tech. I mean, I was just, we're just doing our best. But that's not what happened. What happened was that she was like, well, you broke my printer because somebody else touched it last and then it was broken. So it's as if it having been broken it disappeared from our mind. And now there was someone who took on the hot potato and was now the responsible person for why this printer was broken. And so I've seen this show up over and over again, hot potato theory, where you could be at work, you could be out in public doing something, and the thing is, if you're a very helpful person, which I find a lot of victims of abuse are, they're trying to be good, moral, ethical people. And so they're out here and they're thinking, I want to be the change I want to see in the world. I want to step forward. I want to help. And so they end up in these situations where they're holding the hot potato. Something goes wrong, and it's like, well, you did it. And then you're sitting there like, wait a minute, I was just trying to help. And I made it better, at least for a little bit. Like, why are you blaming me? Hot potato theory, the who touched it last theory. Like when somebody else is, got their hands on it. And if you're actually good at office politics, if you can get another random person to touch your buddy, for real though, what in the world? If you can get somebody else to touch your project, and then something goes wrong with the project, that person is now set up to take the fall and be the fall guy. And again, I think this happens so often with people who are trying to be good people, moral people, ethical people, helpful people, going out into the world and thinking, "Oh, I'm going to make a change in this world." But if you think back to like what I was talking about with Superman, even Superman, or even the DC universe, like these heroes are saving them from these intergalactic aliens, and then everyone's like, "Well, you broke everything, and now we're mad at you." And it's like you'd all be dead if we hadn't done anything. Like, is this not the better? So what if downtown New York is destroyed? At least y'all are alive. Um, but yeah, hot potato theory. So I think if you're a victim of abuse, or if you were raised in a very particular way, very optimistic, very naive, thinking that like everybody's good, that all we need is love. And so when you run up on these types of people, these ways of thinking, hot potato theory, and then suddenly you're being held responsible for things that aren't really your fault. And I really should have known this because there are Good Samaritan laws that basically talk about, hey, if somebody stops to help, they're not liable. Like obviously this is US. I'm not an attorney, blah blah blah. But um, the making it so that if someone stops by to help, that they're not liable, versus what had been happening in China. And I don't know if they've changed their laws, but in China you could be liable if you go to help people. So you would see these videos of people walking past, let's say a person collapsed on the sidewalk. And so I know Americans would look at the videos and make comments and say things like, how could they do that? How could you not have any humanity? And it wasn't as much that they didn't have humanity as that they were making a very smart, rational decision for themselves, which is, if I touch this person, I'm going to be the one who's held responsible in some way because I'm the only one around. And hot potato theory. So yeah, um, it's really hard if you are going through your life and you're presuming that everyone is a good-hearted, wonderful, kind person because you yourself are a good-hearted, kind, wonderful person. And so when people act in these ways, it's very kind of jarring and shocking. And we want things to be better than that. Anyway, all right, honey, sweetie, I should have I should have given them some Chudo before we started. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about I wanted to talk about sleep styles. Okay, so um, sleep styles. So there are parents that very aggressively will wake kids up on the weekends, like, and not let them sleep in. So, it's that kind of classic story of like your mom's vacuuming at 7 or 8 a.m. and then like coming into your room and vacuuming to like passive aggressively wake you up because she's been up for hours, or your dad's been up for hours and they've been working. You're just being in bed lazy. And so I've never been a fan of that. My dad actually was really smart. He basically one weekend day, so it was Saturday, he basically would say, like, I'm sleeping until 12. I don't care what time y'all wake up. You can go ahead and get your own breakfast that doesn't involve the stove, so like cereal. And I don't think we had a TV at that time. So we just kind of like entertained ourselves listening to the radio put on records, but like really low so it wouldn't wake him up, or we'd read books or something. But like, so we were up and doing stuff. And then I think at some point when we finally got the TV, I want to say like 1992. So we finally got a TV, and then so we'd like watch Saturday morning cartoons, like very low. And then he'd wake up, and then at noon we could make whatever noise we wanted to make. And I really liked that because it was a combination of him getting a break as a single parent, getting to sleep in, but it wasn't like the whole day, because I have certainly dated people who basically laid in bed all day. Like they would be, I would literally be waiting for them to wake up. Like, when is this person gonna wake up so we can do stuff? And they'd wake up at 5. Like the whole day is gone at that point to me. And so I found it like a weirdly controlling thing, because you couldn't really do anything if you weren't afraid of, you had to literally not care about waking them up if you wanted to go do anything like in the house. And so I like that kind of like middle way of, no, we're not waking people up at 7 a.m. and being really passive aggressive about it and being mad that they're not cleaning. Oh, but we're not staying in bed till 4 or 6 p.m. or something. I feel like keep things being quiet until about noon, and then it's like, okay, well, all right, now the family gets to make noise in the home and be doing things. Um, I think it's one of these subtle ways that parents can unintentionally, or controlling people in the home can be unintentionally controlling, um, if we're not like paying attention to it. The same thing for like music or TV, like who gets to pick what is being watched, who gets to pick the music or the TV shows. Or even if you pick one and someone comes in and is like, that's so stupid. Why are you watching that? Which is hilarious, because actually, the people who do the most stressful jobs love to watch the most garbage shows. So like anyone coming in and judging a person for their the media that they're watching, as if this is some sort of a character piece of like whether or not you're a smart person or a good person in some way. It's like, how could you watch that garbage? It's so stupid. And it's like, this person may be like a nurse who's been on their feet for 12 hours a day, or a neurosurgeon, or somebody else with like a high stress job. A lot of high stress job people really love to watch garbage TV because they're just trying to turn their brains off. They use it. Their brain is burnt out. They just want to watch some nonsense. So anyway, I always found it really fascinating to watch people judge other people for their viewing habits. The group of people I was most around were like, "Ah, we only watch like, good TV like Star Trek, or what was the other one? Like Doctor Who. Like, oh, we watch real media, you're watching normie, normie garbage." It's like, uh, there's something for everybody and it's fine. Anyway, so hoarding is another way people like control the space. And it's one of those things where they're gonna tell you like, "Oh no, but I'm working on it," or um, um, "Oh, I'm making progress" is another big one. And when in reality, no, they're not. They're not making progress, and they've taken over the entire living space, and made it kind of like impossible for anyone else to do anything. I feel like it's a very another passive or passive aggressive form of controlling the home and the space. Just like when you allow people to either sleep or be in the home doing family activities in the living areas. Um, or yeah, music and TV. So sort of a lot of these systems of coercive control that we can run into as victims of abuse, they can start off in these smaller ways. Like, who's allowed to sleep in, but also how long are we allowed to sleep in for? Obviously, this is not for like night shift jobs. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people on a regular schedule, like a teenager. My son he just had his birthday. He just turned 14. And so, he's feeling grown, he's feeling like a teenager. And teenagers legit, they need their rest. Especially with the amount of like his middle school, they start at 7:30. It's crazy early. I mean, I don't even think my high school did actually, but my middle school didn't. Anyway, I feel like, yo, get your rest. But at the same time, the family, we can't wait all day. And we also should be able to use the space too. So I feel like noon is a really, I think that's a good, like a good, what's it called? Compromise. Okay. So anyway, I wanted to talk about how victims can recalibrate their understanding of the abuser, because so much of kind of getting a victim to leave an abuser is to get them to recognize they're being abused in the first place, right? And so much of that is already pre-framed by this love framework, like, oh, we're family, or this person is my partner, or this is my best friend. And so there's this pre-existing framework that gets mapped onto the relationship dynamic that may not really have much to do with what's actually happening in the relationship, but it's extremely difficult to talk to victims of abuse out of thinking, oh, we love each other, or we're family, or whatever. So the several ways that I came up with for kind of trying to help them see maybe that what the abuser is doing isn't what the victim is doing. Like, they're doing two very different things in the relationship, and the relationship isn't mutual the way they think it is. Okay. So, recalibrating your understanding of the abuser. You compare the abuser's actions or beliefs to your own. So, for example, the victim often thinks like, "Oh, well, you go the extra mile for family." Well, then it's like, is the family going the extra mile for you? And the answer is no, of course not. Compare how they act when things are easy versus when things are hard. So it's easy. It's easy to be nice and kind and whatever when things are easy. It's a lot harder to do that when things get tough, when there is a strain on resources, or there's just not enough time in the day. There's too much to do, or there's like a stressful event that's happened. Maybe someone has like passed away, you know, money issues, whatever it is. Often victims will think back to the beginning of the relationship dynamic and think, oh, well, that's who this person is, this way that they were. And we just need to get back to that, instead of recognizing, oh, this is when things were easy. This is when no one has responsibilities. This is when anything that's done is done voluntarily, and like the victim's very appreciative, or the victim may be doing things for the abuser or to be abuser, and they don't recognize, like, at some point the to be abuser will start to feel entitled to that, and that all of these like nice ways that they're behaving will not necessarily be sustained, because it's not who they are, or at least it's not who they are when things get hard. Let's see, because a lot of times resources talk about like, oh, they're liars, or they're manipulating, and there certainly are absolutely the abusers who are wearing a mask and you don't actually know. But sometimes it's just like opportunistic, or it's just they're selfish. And so once things get hard, they think, oh, well, I get to do what I want to get what I want. All right. When they are getting what they want versus when they aren't. Oh, yes. When you tell them no. That's why one of the biggest ways to see if someone is an unsafe person that people will recommend early in a relationship is to tell that person no. And this, in my opinion, if you are a, go with the flow kind of person, you, or like a people pleaser, you may not recognize that this person is unsafe or abusive or controlling, or can't hear the word no, that won't allow you to have boundaries. Because in the beginning, in those early phases when it's easy, you know, there's nothing really at stake. Like, you're not, let's say you're not sharing a home yet, or maybe you don't have kids, or you're not financially entwined, or there's not a lease or a mortgage or something like that. The stakes are low. There's no responsibility. So much easier for things to be nice. So if you're the go with the flow person, you just might be like, oh yeah, I don't really care where we go eat. I don't really care what we spend our time doing. I don't really have an opinion. Yeah, I'm down to do that. So you don't really end up saying no in the beginning, but then at some point you have to say no, because there are things over which you're responsible that you need to take care of or protect, including yourself. And so So telling the abuser no at that point, maybe the first time they've heard the no. And then so victims are often shocked at that point by their behavior. And so that's why there's a lot of recommendations to tell people no early in a relationship dynamic. I'd say I've made this mistake before, and not even just in romantic relationships, but with friendships, where I was just like, yeah, sure, whatever, it's fine, I'm down. And then, at some point you got to tell somebody no, and then you see. Let's see. And then the fourth one is when they're around others, or is it just the two of you? So how are they acting when you're around people versus when you guys are alone together? Is there a difference? And so if you are thinking, oh, this abuser is a person who loves me, or, we're family, or they like me, or something like that, but they're only doing it when it's easy. They're only doing it when that you don't tell them no. They're only doing it when it's just the two of you, maybe, or maybe when it's people around you and then they get controlling in private, however that shakes out. Um, those are ways that victims can use to kind of think about, like, oh, is this person who I think they are? Is the situation the way that I think the situation is? And so these are kind of sort of my ways when I talk to victims of helping them recalibrate their understanding of the abuser. And as always, I love asking them or making the comment of, like, does this person even like you? That's also that's probably my number one favorite of recalibrating, because the victim is so locked into the love or family framework. Friendship, we're best friends. And it's like, let's get around the framework. Does this person even like you? Because if you challenge them on the love piece, they're going to argue against it. That the abuser is the abuser, that the abuser doesn't love them. But if you go to like, they know. Anyway, so recalibrating their perspective on the dynamic and the abuser. Okay, let's talk about. Oh, okay. Okay. I don't know if people have seen this trend on TikTok or Instagram or wherever. So it's framed in a gender construct. But for me, I'm like, this is amazing. And again, sort of looping back or connecting back to what I was talking about at the beginning, which is, a lot of vulnerable people are vulnerable because they are very optimistic and naive about how people are, and they just want to help. They want to be the change, in the world, and they're trying to be helpful. And then they're getting responses from unsafe people that they're not ready for, they aren't expecting, because they think everyone should be like this or is like this. So yeah, being overly helpful. So the idea is being useless. So the original idea was being useless to men, which, like, I just like the idea of, like, being useless. So this one lady, oh, I should have saved it. She was talking about, she's like, yeah. She's like, someone comes to me, I am the most useless person. I'm not trying to solve your problem, but I will sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. What are you going to do? Wow, that's crazy. Instead of coming in and trying to, like, solve the problem. And I definitely had that moment where I was like, oh, that's me, done that. So let me look into the be useless thing. Okay, so instead of putting it in the gender context, I like it as in terms of being useless to users, because before they become abusers, they're generally users. We just might miss it. Either they're hiding it and have a mask and they're being manipulative, or they're, we're just got the rose colored glasses on and we don't see it. But being useless to a user, yeah. So I wrote, let's see, that it allows them to experience the consequences of their own actions. So victims of abuse are, like, chronic for this. They will come in and, like, rescue the person, rescue the abuser, or rescue the user. Because again, we're trying to be nice, we're trying to be helpful. We want to treat other people the way we would like to be treated. Maybe we have a idea of how the world should work, to be the change you want to see in this world. Like, if everyone acted this way, um, then the world would be a better place. And it's essentially the tragedy of the commons, but for people, instead of, like, a common area. So the tragedy of the commons is essentially if you have a community resource, back in ye olden times, it might have been like the town square. If you have a community resource, the tragedy of the commons is that people will take advantage of the community resource while other people are trying to take care of the community resource. And so the users are extracting value from the resource, which is really extracting value from the people who are like taking care of the resource. And whoops, my bad. And so anyway, I think something is similar for in a psychological sense, where the community resource is our goodwill toward each other, our perspective on humanity, how we want to treat people and be treated. So the abusers use that to their own advantage to extract value from people. And it's essentially a tragedy of the commons. I want to pull up the definition, like the official one, just to make sure. Tragedy of the commons. Tragedy of the commons is an economic and ecological concept describing how individuals acting in their own self-interest deplete or spoil a shared resource, ultimately ruining it for everyone. So essentially, this is what happens. Victims are trying to be good people. Users, then abusers take advantage of that. And then victims often get to a point where they're like, well, why am I being targeted? And often it's not that they're being targeted. I mean, sometimes that is true, but that it's users really love people who are trying to make things better. They're like, yes, for me. Okay, so I wrote, users hack people to extract value. Okay, and then the idea is to have no practical value to them, not like in general, not in life, but to someone who's a user, who's an abuser, especially if we can clock it early, to just like that lady said, like, oh, what are you going to do? Wow, that sounds terrible. And not succumb to the dry begging, which, if you're someone who's a really good manipulator, will dry beg, which is they'll tell you the sad, sad story with kind of like leaving that opening for you to come in and go, oh my gosh, I can help you and I can do this and I can do that. Yeah. And I find the victims of abuse are often like those kind of people. Okay, so have no practical value to them, serve no purpose to them, do not perform the functions for them that they desire. So usually you see this as like, that's like a spouse appliance, or they want maybe they want somebody who has a truck to come in, like help them move. And then, I feel like I hear this all the time with people with trucks where they get used by their friends. And then after the move happens and they got paid in beer and pizza, by people who, have money, that they suddenly disappear off the face of the planet. So this is for everybody. Let's see. Do not be dependable so that they are able to depend on you. Yeah. This is another one where we think about like, what does it mean to be good in this world? And in general, we think that being a dependable person means that you're being a good person, that it is a good thing to be a dependable person. But when you are being a dependable person that toxic people can depend on, is where we run into problems. And so they make themselves dependent on your goodwill. And it's that tragedy of the commons thing. All right. Oh, okay. This was the lady. Oh, I did write it down. Okay. Her name is @Brandy, the Millennial Manager. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad. Good for me. And what she said was, you don't have an S on your chest, let them fail. Yes. Yep. So just recognizing good boundaries is sort of like half the battle, I feel like. But if you've been raised by abusers, you often have been trained to have bad boundaries, to be over responsible for other people, overly giving, overly generous in terms of even how you interpret giving them the benefit of the doubt. It's just too much. So a lot of that recalibration for victims of abuse really is like coming back to healthy boundaries and understanding what is your business and what is not your business. And honestly, I'm still working on that, obviously, but I'm getting to a point now where when people say certain things, In my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, that's not my business. Not my business. You know what I mean? You're grown, you're an adult person, you do what you want, but this is not my business to come in and do anything about. And so just building that in piece by piece, I feel like every time you slap down that instinct, you're strengthening your sense of what is an appropriate boundary. So yeah. Okay. I wrote, you can't love someone into not abusing you. Oh yeah. Yeah, you can't love someone into not abusing you. If that were possible, abusers would not even exist, because victims of abuse, they try so hard to love this person. Again, coming back to that idea of, oh, I want to be a good person and I want to treat other people the way they treat me. And I had this idea of like human beings where everyone's like a really good person. So you run up against people who take advantage, tragedy of the commons, who are users, and they love that. And so they're perfectly happy to take all of the benefits of what you give them and then punish you for it. It's insane. Alrighty. Let's see. Nope, we're not going to talk about that. I don't think I want to talk about building intrinsic motivation today. All right. I think there was just one more thing, and then that was going to be it, unless anyone has questions. All right. Oh, okay. Okay. This is not for victims, but it's for victims. And I'll explain what I'm going to say in a second. Anytime I don't quote the specific person, it's because either it came from AI slop or it came from like Christian stuff. And then I'm not trying to do all that. So the video, it was like AI slop video, and the AI whomever said that gratitude protects you from entitlement and keeps wonder alive. Now, I talk about this all the time. Victims will hear something like this and they will think, oh, I need to have more gratitude. I need to not be entitled. I want to keep my wonder alive. Like they misread the resources. Okay. This is to orient toward the abuser. Does the abuser have gratitude? Does the abuser have entitlement? Does the abuser have wonder? Right? So we got to think about like what direction are we pointing this piece of information in? Because usually the victims are gratitude for things they shouldn't even have to be having gratitude for, like basic things, because the bar for a victim is so low that they're grateful for things that they are genuinely entitled to. Whereas abusers or unsafe people or users, they're not grateful for the good things. They are not exercising gratitude. And so this is a piece of information for someone who needs to shift toward grace, toward not being a terrible person, toward not being selfish. And that step for them is to start with gratitude. So when you're a victim of abuse, okay, you go, oh, does this person have gratitude? We're recalibrating how we are applying all of our moral constructs. Does this person have gratitude? Do they notice what is good? Do they appreciate it? Do they reciprocate? Because I guarantee you victims are doing that. They're not only doing that, but they get like A+ gold stars for how much they do it. Like we're doing it too much to people that are unreasonably entitled. Entitlement in and of itself is not bad. I've talked about this in another video. There are genuine entitlements if you are in a certain kind of relationship. You are genuinely entitled, for example, if you're in a romantic relationship, for your partner not to go out and have sex with other people. That is a genuine entitlement. That's not being entitled. So when we talk about someone, oh, this person's entitled, we mean that they're being unreasonably entitled. That is Delulu entitlement. They're entitled to they feel entitled to something that they aren't actually entitled to. They feel entitled to control what you wear or where you go or what you do. That's unreasonable entitlement for like an adult. But they're genuine entitlements. So you're genuinely entitled for your partner not to go out and, have sex with other people. Like that is reasonable. So anyway, when you're a victim of abuse, you get into these like arguments over what's real, what's reasonable, what's reality. And so the being entitled piece, if a victim hears that, they often think, oh, I don't want to be entitled. And the thing is, you do have entitlements that are real and appropriate, genuine entitlements. The abuser, they take that concept and they you give them an inch and they take a mile. Their entitlements are not reasonable. The entitled is that they want something that's not really theirs to have. So, yeah, when you're thinking about your moral code, when you're a victim of abuse, um, abusers need to turn the lens inward. They're the ones that need to look at their own behaviors. The victim needs to turn the lens outward and look at the abuser's behaviors because the abuser ends up focusing so intensely on the victim. So they focus intensely on themselves. Like, am I being a good person? How can I be an even better person? Again, trying to be a good, moral, ethical person. And the abuser is just literally like, doing whatever they want. So anyway, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I hope everybody's having a great night, great weekend, all the things. And yeah, I'll talk to y'all next time. Okay. Bye.